Hey, vinyl community, Jeff back again for one of my Perfect 10 series. I am at number 11 in Perfect 10. Reminder, this is just basically me pulling the 10th album in my collection. Every 10th album until I have 10 and showing them. It's a way to kind of just dig through, the collection, maybe show some things you hadn't seen in a while, pull out some things and listen to them you haven't heard in a while. Revisit the collection, and then just talking a little bit about them. Nothing major, nothing fancy, just taking a look at what randomly comes out. It's just one of those random ways to do things. So last time we ended with Ozzy, so we're in the O's or beyond. Actually, we're in the P's, I guess, according to this. Paramecium, can't see the sticker there. Paramecium, Exhumed of the Earth. One of the few death doom metal albums that I have. I bought this mainly because Paramecium they're from Australia. They're kind of a death band, from the former member of Mortification, and more of a doom, but then they became kind of more of a death, and so they reissued their stuff on vinyl. They're very popular in that genre. I'm not a huge fan of that genre, but the band is very popular. I think I've had one of their CDs in the past, back in the 90s, and so when they came out with these limited run vinyl reissues, I kind of felt compelled. You ever do that? It's not necessarily, maybe you're like, I don't know how much I'll listen to it, but it's so scarce and it's so popular, I should get it. I did that. And so anyway, color vinyl. They released a second one after this. This is a double record set, and it's on two different color splatters. They released a second one after this. It was also advertised as a double record set, blah, 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 blah. They cut corners, and I don't know what they did. It ended up coming out as a one record set, crammed it all into one record. So, they did release both of these pivotal albums. So I went ahead and grabbed that. Paramecium, like I say, one of the more extreme metal bands, and I occasionally pull it out. I've listened to it 2 or 3 times to try to get more into it. And that moves us into Petra. Now, I've had most of the Petra that they have on vinyl, and so I guess Paramecium pushes us all the way into the early days of Petra. So this is like within the first few albums of theirs. Early days, I have OG copies. Couldn't afford, would love to one day get all of the ones that have been recently reissued on color, from Girder and everything, but there's just so much. And so I just love these early days. I remember back in the day so Petra is one of the more popular Christian rock bands. Back in the day when these things were popular, and I was a church kid, and I was listening to the Motley Crues and the Kisses and the Van Halens and all the heavy metal that I listened to, people would say, you need to listen to Petra because they're like Christian rock. And I listened to Petra back then, and they're hard rock. And no, they're not. They're not. But in hindsight now, and now in years of eventually broadening up to listen to them, this stuff is just phenomenal. It is phenomenal. It's definitely not church music in the sense that people in the church didn't really like it, but so it is rock, and it's rockier than most church music, but it's definitely nothing near what the world was doing at the time, in outside of the church musically. They have some albums that are pretty heavy, but these early days, and I just love them for what they are. I love them for what they are, regardless of that. And here's another one of those early Christian rock bands, Philadelphia Search and Destroy. This is the original OG copy. It was reissued by Rox Records, I believe. They colorized the cover, had a contest, had people colorize it. They colorized the cover, reissued it, remastered it, limited edition, everything. But this is the OG copy, which happened to be the one that randomly popped up. They are a Louisiana band. When I bought them and discovered them, I lived in Mississippi, which is right next to Louisiana. And actually, I think some of the guys might live in North Mississippi. It's one of those, you could be on either side of the state line. But they are just one of the early 80s hard rocking bands. So these guys were going around probably, Stryper was a little heavier, but this is their second album. Their first album, was in those early days when Stryper was just starting too. So they were one of the early hard rockers there. All right, from Philadelphia, we got POD. So, Payable on Death. This is the Walmart exclusive one that came out not too long ago, and I bought this when Walmart had their Black Friday $15 sale. So I was able to grab one of these. This is the one that, yeah, it's on red. There's gold editions and everything. So, and this is their album from, when was this album? 10 years ago, 10 or more years ago, maybe 2010. I don't know. It's a great album. I like POD, and I'd love to pick up more of their stuff on vinyl. They have a couple out there. All right, Human Machine. Primal, their most recent release, just came out. This is, you know, Scott Waters just showed this the other day. Scott Waters is, this is his label, No Life to Metal, and it's got, this is his label, this is one of his bands. This is the second release from Primal. Straight up just hard rock, just straight up metal, hard rocking metal. Just straight up heavy stuff. Not extreme, just straight up hard, heavy metal. Yeah, and this is a modern release. This is their newest release. Like I said, I think it came out just a couple months ago. This year. Pretty sure. Time flies, but maybe should still be this year. Great stuff. Check it out if you haven't. Talking about this year, I guess, or maybe it was last year, the most recent Queensryche album. I finally got my hands on this. Digital Noise Alliance. When was this? 2022 or 2023? I don't know. It's the most recent Queensryche. The, you know, new singer and everything. So yeah, anyway, if you haven't heard it, it's great. They've been putting out some pretty consistent albums these last couple ones since Jeff Tate left. And this is another one that I think it's great. I mean, I haven't any problems with it. I'm enjoying the new stuff. It's a double record set. It's just on black. Nothing fancy there. So yeah, so anyway, great stuff. Love Queensryche in all forms and fashions. Even the weird stuff that people don't like. And see, we're still in Queensryche. The Warning. We got their first album, second release, EP, and then an album. I was hooked with the EP. Loved the EP. The album came out. It took me a little bit of time to warm up to it because it was a little different musically. But of course, it became just absolutely pivotal, essential. You know, it's just one of the most bestest albums back in the day. And they were just, you could do no harm. They could do no wrong in the early days with their first few albums or so. So yeah, this is where it all began for most people, was here. And those of us who had hooked on to the EP, we knew that they were headed for greatness, and that is where they went. So, all right, QuietRiot, the first QuietRiot. Of course, the first two albums, 1 and 2, first came out in Japan. They weren't even U.S. releases. Nobody knew anything about them, even though we're a California band. And it wasn't until we got Metal Health in the early 80s, a couple years later. These were in the 70s. And then the world discovered them. These albums were extremely hard to find. You pay hundreds of dollars, $500 or whatever, to get a Japanese copy of these. And then they were just reissued on, was it No Remorse Records? Reissued them in the past year or so. As a box set with a CD and cassette version and some patches and stuff, but also, on vinyl. And I bought the box sets, which I have over there, and I just kind of couldn't get myself to open them, to crack them open. So I went ahead and picked up individual copies of the vinyl to have playing copies, and then the other ones are collecting copies. These are on black, whereas the ones in the box set, I believe, are silver, or it's a different color there. But great stuff. It's early stuff. It's not anything like a lot of the other QuietRiot, but it's, you can see they got the moment where they're headed. You can see they're headed to greatness there. Final Vinyl by Rainbow, near the tail end of when, this is kind of like got a compilation of all kinds of different clips with all kinds of different singers over the years of their live stuff. And yeah, I love Rainbow, and this is a great way to hear a lot of their hits from over the years live with various singers. And then we're ending this set with Detonator by Ratt, the red unofficial copy. They now have the official copies out and the box set. I don't know if I'll buy the box set, only because I only need the few that are in there that are not available, but I probably will if it drops price-wise. I really wish they would hurry up and maybe get around to individually releasing them so that I can pick up the ones I need and not all of them, but, or bring the price down. like the Van Halen box set that just came out is like, what is it, $110 or so, whatever. That's barely anything, whereas the Ratt box set's like 150 or 60. So anyway, I'm watching Amazon, and if this thing drops, like, you know, Skid Row box set dropped at like, what, $70 or something, 5 albums or whatever. So if they ever drop it down like that, I'm going to pounce on it, and I'll go ahead and get updated copies of all the OGs that I've got. So, but there you go. Ratt Detonator, one of the few that they've had to unofficially release up until now. That's it for this one. Perfect 10 random albums. Every 10th album. We are now somewhere near the bottom of that collection. We still got to go through the rest of that. We got this whole section over here. And then I'm not sure if I'll move into, I've got a pop section, a rock, hard rock section, rock, hard rock, classic rock section, and jazz and soundtracks and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I may do some for those pop and hard rock sections, but we got a little ways to go for this. And I'll see you next time. Rock on and rock hard.